We can store anything inside of JavaScript variables. Up until now, we've been using numbers, but we can also store strings inside of variables. Here we have a welcome variable as well as a safety tip variable. We can use both of those variables that contain strings in concatenation with a new line character to produce a specifically formatted string in the output on the console. If our variable contains a string, we can use the .length property to access the length of that string instead of typing the entire string out. Here you can see our variable longString with a string that I wouldn't want to retype every time. And if we use the .length property on longString, we can see that it returns the value 49 as the length. We can also compare string lengths using the length property and a comparator. So if we made two variables here, longword1 and longword2, and they're both huge, and we don't want to count each one or compare which one is longer, we can use the greater than operator to ask whether the length of the first string is greater than the length of the second string. When we use the .length property on two variables, we're comparing two numbers. And here we get a result of false because longword1 is not longer than longword2. Now, JavaScript strings have a way of finding specific characters within that string. Each position inside a string has a numbered index that begins from 0. Here we have a variable called sentence, and inside is a sentence, a very long string. You can see that at the index 0, we have the capital letter A. You want to think of index numbers as being a certain distance away from the starting character, and thus the first character in a string is 0 away from itself. Then you can see at index 8 that we have a lowercase s. At index 28 we have a space character. That's right, spaces are characters too. And then in the very last index, index 42, we have an exclamation point. Now if we took the length of this sentence variable using the .length property, JavaScript would return a 43. What? Why? We just said that the last character was index 42. That's because string positions are 0-based, and so there will always be one less index than the total length of the string. Another cool helper method for strings is the char@at method. If you place an index inside the parentheses of the char@at method, JavaScript will return the character that's exactly at that index for you. So you can see that the 11th index would contain the letter B. The 31st index would contain a space character, and JavaScript will return a space to you, surrounded by two quotation marks. And at the 42nd index, we can see that we get the exclamation point. Variables are essentially the foundation of programming. They help us organize our data, and we're able to create very powerful and complex and flexible messages using variables which can be modified. Let's say that we were designing a train system, and we have a certain amount of operational trains out of a certain amount of total trains. Let's see how we can make a message to print to the user at the console about how many running trains there are today. If we wanted to make our message using these particular variables, we could do trains operational concatenated with out of, then the variable total trains, and then the operating status message. Together, those would produce 8 out of 12 trains are operational today. Now say we had to run the train system message again the next day, but there was a different amount of trains that were operational. Too easy. We can change the trains operational variable to a value of 10. And now, when the message gets printed out to the user, we get 10 out of 12 trains are operational today. That's it for the variable section. We're going to release you to the hounds in the challenge section. Good luck, and we'll see you in the next section. We can even use dollar scores. That's
a lot of whistles, if you know what I mean.
Da-da-na-na. Longwood 2. Longwood. I might have had 3 beers. It is a road trip after all.